All right. Let's check the microphone before anything. Looks like I got sound going into OBS. Yeah, and I got sound coming out of YouTube, which we want to turn off now. Let me delete the... let me edit. YouTube changed their button. Oh, no. I see what's wrong. Okay. Alright. How we got swapped onto the other YouTube. I ended up with two YouTubes because somewhere along the way it got folded into Gmail, something like that, but they also had YouTube accounts before that, and I already had one, so they like kind of split and became, or it added a second one. So now I have like two different accounts that I can switch between. I don't know what do they call it? I don't know. Switch account. Yeah, I guess they just say switch account. Anyway, what are we doing on this page? We are trying to disable the live chat. Save that. Might as well throw in the stream description. I need to write a new stream description, or at least update this one. This one's getting to be pretty old at this point. This was really, I wrote this when I first started streaming on Saturdays, and I have not updated it since then. But I really probably should, because definitely a lot has changed. Got that for now. I disabled the chat, right? Yeah, disabled the chat. So if anybody is watching this and wants to chat, the place to do it is on Twitch or Discord. On the Adafruit Discord, you can ping me in the live broadcast chat. Or Twitch works as well. I disabled the YouTube chat for now. So let's close that. Let's get here. This is already muted. Okay, let me pull up those chats now that I've mentioned it. Make sure I'm actually watching them. Then I think we're ready. Okay. Okay. So diving straight in. Basically, I'm working on following up on some PRs, so I figured I would go ahead and throw the stream on. And then after that, I think I have an idea for what I think will be a quick and easy and somewhat fun project. So we'll work on that afterwards, which is in the titles there, is like a SaRcaStic text thing. But following up on PRs first is where I'm starting. So one of them is this, which is in SI 7021, which is a typing PR, which I think is probably everything that is here is looking good to me at this point, but I do think there's a couple other things we should add still, maybe, because this is only adding types to one file. Or does this already have types? No. I think we should go ahead and add types to the whole library, which in this case is the two files. I think this was like a quick Tektrick went and did the types real quick to try to get a change to make a new release because something got messed up where GitHub did not, not GitHub, I think PyPy. It gets confused if you try to make a second release when there hasn't been a change. That was something weird. So this was a change kind of in order to make a change, in order to get a release, in order to resolve that being weird. But I do think it's worth going ahead and doing the second file as well. And this also got split very recently into having multiple files in this library. This library used to be a single module, but now it's a package. I think those terms are right, but I'm not 100% sure. So let's do a quick check here. I think I only found one thing in here that I thought needed change last time, and I think it's been changed now. Exactly where it was at. Oh, it was a setter that returned not, and maybe it's hidden now because of the like a specific commit or something. Maybe it's because this was show resolved. So this was on header level setter. Okay, let's double check that. It's probably done. There's another commit there. Yeah. So this does return that now. Okay. So I think just well, two more things. I think one of them is we can go ahead and do the other file. The other one actually I noticed is that when this got split to a module, when this got split to a package, again, I think that's the right term, the setup.py didn't get updated with this thing, which affects what files get put into the TyPeR release anyway. So I think actually if we try to release on TyPeR right now without fixing this, it either wouldn't install right or it wouldn't contain all the right files if it did install. I think it would be missing something because I think this needs to be packages instead of Py modules. Once it gets split into a package, which is a folder with multiple things inside of it, then this needs to change here. And I don't know what exactly it does. I know it's for PyPy, and it has to do with what all gets included in the package. Beyond that, I don't really know the specifics, but I do know that much. So let's leave that feedback. And we can, I think it will be good to do those things, do at least that setup.py change anyway, because I think the PyPy release will be broken for other reasons if we don't change that. Let's say, or we'll just say, are you up for doing the other file in this library as well? Even though it's newer than the issue, than the typing issue. Once types are in for all files library. So let's do that file, and then one other thing I noticed that I think needs updated in the setup.py is the modules field needs to be updated to packages, I believe. Otherwise, PyPy won't get the correct files bundled into it, if I understand correctly. So we'll link to this also, which I think I have here. Well, we could do the same thing, right? Just link to this line. I don't know why it won't one box. It seems like it will only one box one of these links, and sometimes it doesn't do it at all. I haven't figured out what the rules are for when it decides to do that or not. Okay. Oh, it's too big. I can't scroll to the approve. Or the this button, submit. Approve, but submit. Okay. This is one. This is the other, another PR that I want to follow up with. This is in the core. We did this 2 nights ago, I think it was. This was changing some doc strings in the Wi-Fi module, and I did some wrong. Let me go back and fix a couple of them. What did I name the branch? Let's look on GitHub. Wi-Fi docstring types. So one thing is I have changes here. What are these? Oh, indent. Okay. Just put it back to how it was when I committed. I don't know if that matters. Yeah, I don't know if that matters. I don't know if white space. I suspect white space doesn't matter too much, I guess, in C because it has brackets, unlike Python. But this is also a weird kind of if statement because it doesn't, as a hashtag, and it doesn't use parentheses or brackets. So I don't know. This is not the typical type of if that I'm used to seeing. And so like my instinct would be to indent this in this way. But I think the other place where we copied this code from, actually notice does not have it indented. Or recall right. Let's look, USB. Yeah. So here, it doesn't have it indented. So I don't know if that's just convention or if it needs to be one way or the other or what. But I made that change. But I don't want to commit it right now, and so I'm going to undo it and go back to this. Wi-Fi doc strings. Oops, nope, we don't want that. Close these. Let's go find shared bindings Wi-Fi. Whoops. I think it was in radios what we were doing. Here. Yeah, radio. Oh, radio C though. So some of them I just did wrong. Some of them got new direction after the fact for, I think, making a union one where it has 2 possible types, if I'm recalling correctly. So I guess let's just start from the top down. Worry about which one is which. So readable buffer is correct here. This was on MAC address. Okay. MAC address. Ooh, okay, there's a lot of those. Address readable buffer. Well, no, now it's string though. But it should be a readable buffer. 120, I guess the number is also there. Let me also start up some things over here. I double checked the music today. Well, not music, because I don't have any music playing yet, but I'm about to start it. I double checked the sound though. Learned my lesson on Tuesday, not to get the DMCA ninjas all over me. Whoa, what is this? Oh. Oh, okay, this is in the wrong YouTube also. Why did it randomly switch me? Yes, I'm sure it wasn't random. I don't think I clicked it, but it's tied to like a session expiring or something. Okay, shuffle it. Yeah, let's go shuffle. Also, I don't think I mentioned at the top of the stream or anytime, but I changed the text that's along the bottom there. The link that's along the bottom, it's the same type of thing, but this is a different one. This is a blog post. Let me pull it up, actually. This is a bit of an interjection, because I actually meant to talk about this for a minute when I got started, but I totally slipped my mind and just dove straight in. Restream.io. So, for folks that don't know, Restream.io, this powers my stream and a bunch of other streams as well, like the Adafruit Show and Tell and all of that stuff is going through here as well. This is like a stream distribution platform, is the best way I could describe it. So you sign up for this thing, you get a single streaming token, and you put that token in your OBS, and then whenever you do the Start Streaming button inside OBS, this can link up with other platforms and stream to all of them. So the picture here, you can see it's like going into Twitch and going into YouTube and going into this one. That's what Restream is all about, and so I use that. That's how we're showing right now on Twitch and YouTube at the same time, is through this platform. And this company, it turns out, which I did not know this about them, but this company is actually kind of halfway headquartered in Kiev in Ukraine. They had two offices. One of them is in, I think it was Austin, Texas, and one of them is in Kiev. So they are, you know, yeah, Austin, Texas, and Kiev. So obviously they are front and center in, you know, a devastating situation. So they have folks on the ground there. Therefore, they have lots of good resources here. And I thought it was worth updating to this because this page is also designed very well. It doesn't contain any fluff, really. It's like just about this and a bunch of good details about different ways that you can help out folks on the ground over there who are obviously experiencing, you know, hell on earth, to put it quite bluntly. So just to recap, lots of good resources here. If you have the ability to, please consider supporting some of those resources. And just, I'll say generally, thank you to Restream, because they made setting this up to be able to stream on all these different platforms quite easy and convenient, in my opinion. If it were not for them, I probably would not be on multiple platforms. I probably would just be directly on Twitch only, or maybe YouTube, but I suspect I would lean towards Twitch. So, you know, they are pretty directly the reason why we are on both right now. Okay, so we got that readable buffer here. We were changing. Okay, I got that one. So another one, or no, this is the same one. Yeah, so change that to readable buffer. Okay, we got that. This one was MAC address AP. I guess we're probably not gonna also be able to search for it very well, but 152, it's right down here. Readable buffer. Password then was bytes instead of readable buffer, or string actually. So it was previously readable buffer. I changed it to string, but that was incorrect because it's got bytes. Where's this one? 229. This one should be bytes. And okay, we got a second one of those somewhere. So this was password 230-ish. This was password 308-ish. Function here, connect, yep. Password, yep, and this has the bytes as well. Okay. Okay, annotated mention SSID can be composed of any bytes values, not only those that can be represented in a string. Okay. So yeah, I think that lends credence to bytes being more correct than string, definitely. So this one is BSSID 311. So this is right here. This is another one where it's bytes, although this one is also optional. Optional bytes. Oh yeah, this was interesting. I noticed this one was breaking the CI. Because it didn't pass. Failed on inside build and validate stubs. But what's weird is I thought we got a local build successfully, so somehow I'm out of sync with how the actions get set up. Actions container. There's one more. Okay, yeah, this is the other one. So you may want to convert them to bytes before passing them down. So let me try to make sure I understand which ones we want to change to this. So for the string-like values, so I wonder if that's meaning anything that we currently have string on. So basically the background here is that MicroPython okay, so in MicroPython, the string class basically extends the buffer protocol. It uses the buffer interface in MicroPython, but I guess that's not actually the case in CPython. And so that is why originally probably these got marked as readable buffers, because somebody would have seen that it followed the buffer protocol. But then our new type, readable buffer, doesn't include string. So, and that was the first PR that we looked at back on, I don't know which, if it was first or not, but that was the first PR dealing with this issue that we looked at back on Tuesday. Was adding string into the definition of readable buffer, the type, but Dan had mentioned that that was not necessarily what we wanted to do. So I don't know if the intention is for me to add the bytes calls, and I'm not sure where those would go exactly. But I'll make the rest of these changes and then ask about that. So I think, if I understand right, this basically is saying we want to do pretty much all the ones where we had string is actually this, either string or readable buffer. We only have one string. I guess because I undid a couple of them. Well, we changed some to bytes, which had previously been string. We changed at least one back to readable buffer. Here's another string. Okay, this one doesn't have space behind it. That's why I didn't find it before. Trying to get sneaky and do like str space in my find in order to I don't know why. Well, I guess there's no space. Okay. In order to not get things like strength and QSTR. whatever all those things at the bottom are. Okay. So we should have 3 bytes. One's password, BSSID. Yeah. Should have 3 bytes ones. Password, BSSID. Password, BSSID. Maybe there were some that I didn't touch. Password, BSSID. It was just the second one. Okay, bytes. Okay, now that none of those are types. Password 1, password 2, BSSID is 3. And the other 2 things are not types. So we do have those. So then MAC address needed to go to readable buffer, which I believe we did. Buffer. Or AP. Press AP. Oh, maybe I get the. Oh, okay, I misunderstood this the first time. It looks like the suggestion is not to change the type to bytes, but actually to remove the bytes to make it a string instead of a bytes object. Okay. Let's redo those. So this, then do want string, but then not this. String here. But then would these be the same? Would these all be the union ones? Really, this would be the same thing like these ones, right? Okay. Let's change password 1 to not have the bytes on it. We did that. And have it to be string, which I put it back to. Change password 2 to not have the B on it and to be string. Change BSSID to be string without the B. So at this point I have all 3 of those actually set to the union string readable buffer. And here MAC address AP readable buffer is correct. Okay. It's AP. And MAC address as well. Okay. Okay. I think we are set now. It's how I understand it, at least. Or we pass them down. So let's take a look at the ones where we did these unions. Well, okay, so this is a get. This one's not being. This one's being returned, not. Not passed in. This one's also just, that's a return type. This one is a argument. So maybe what Dan meant by this part would be having bytes here. I'm interpreting before we pass down, as in when we pass it into this function. But I'm not 100% confident, truthfully, that my understanding is right. So I think what I'll do is push what I have and then ask about that part. Since I started on the same branch, I should be able to just push to it and it will update the PR. So host name changed to readable buffer. MAC address went back to readable buffer. Address AP went back to readable buffer. This ID became union. Password, though, surely should be the same, I think, as SSID. Oh. Connect. Was that a different? Start AP. Connect. Okay. Okay, SSID and password became union string readable buffers, and password lost its B. SSID and password and BSSID all became the union string readable buffer. Password BSSID both lost their B's. Argument default. That looks like my understanding. Back. Okay. Oh. Princess Edrig. Thank you for the follow. Looks like I got a follow yesterday. I didn't stream yesterday though. Anyway, if you're watching this, or if you do watch this, thank you for the follow. Princess Edrig. Oh, that's interesting. Commit suggestion. Huh. Of course, we already made the change now, but... I didn't notice that before. Like, shortcut. So I could have... If I wanted to take the exact same thing, you could just click on this and it would make the commit for you, it looks like. I'll be honest, I don't quite understand, I guess, what makes MAC address... I guess really what it is I don't really get the difference between readable buffer and string. And it sounds like in MicroPython there's not a difference. String is a readable buffer, but even with that context in mind, I don't really know what the difference would be if there was a difference. Non-human readable string. Is that right? Is that a pipe in those things? The union? Yeah. Okay. And then Oh. Unresolve. It's like 0 chance I'm going to spell that right the first time. I don't know how we made those like suggested change things. There's SSID and password. Okay. Okay. Another PR I want to follow up on, which I don't have open yet, is cursor control. Let me open the local repo actually. Okay, so this is a cursor control library. Did I work on this one on stream? I think maybe I tested this one on stream. I'm not 100% sure though. It was not Tuesday, I don't think. Cursor control is a library that draws this mouse on the screen for you. This is on the PyGamer. I have a bunch of my devices on the desk here, as you can see. Shuffle a couple of these around. So it draws this mouse on the screen, and you can move it around, in this case with the joystick. You could move it around with buttons as well instead of the joystick. And then it can, you can use the A button, although it doesn't look like this example does anything with it, or maybe it's just printing. But you can click the A button and it'll know where the cursor is at when you clicked it. So you can use it for things like clicking on buttons or clicking on other elements in the UI. So it's kind of like a way to use touch interface type controls, but without a touchscreen, right? This doesn't have a touchscreen. It has a joystick and a and B button and a start and select. And so this PR is adding debouncer support, because I think there was debouncer support on the A button already. For a little bit of history on this library originally only did the A button, which was considered like the enter click essentially. And that was the only button it looked for. I actually came along and added the B button because I wanted to have an alt click so that it could do a secondary function when you click on something. And then the person who made this PR, Flom84, they added the button for start and select, which also exist on the Pygamer. And the reason why we have to do all of the buttons inside of this library today is because they're all connected to a shift register that's built onto the board. And that shift register gets initialized inside of this library, shift register keys. And you can only initialize it once. So you can't have like this library initialize it and then some other code also initialize it and try to read the other buttons. You can only initialize it once, and then whatever does initialize it is going to be the thing that is allowed to read the buttons from it. So we had to initialize it in here originally because it was reading the up, down, left, right, and the A buttons. And then we added the additional, B, start, and select because there's not really another easy way to get access to those since this thing has got the shift register set up already, and we can't do it from anywhere else. And so then the latest changes, I think the A button used to, or does, I should say, not used to, but does have debouncing, basic debouncing built in. So you could do like tell when it gets clicked and when it gets released, as opposed to just whether or not it is clicked or not. And then I think this PR here is adding debouncing for the other buttons, so the start and select. Maybe B also. And so I had looked over this before. Let me read back through though. I'm going to add a new file. Oh, inside it. Okay, yeah, examples. Then Tektrick mentioned using keys. Yeah. Nice. Example. Okay, so let's run the example. That was the last thing I had mentioned in the feedback cursor. It's debounced. Oh, it's not plugged in. Pygamer gets me every time because it has a battery, so you can turn it on when it's not plugged in. So inevitably, like every time I use it, turn it on, look at the computer, it's not connected, get confused. Remember that it's not connected. Okay, what do we have right now? Let's see, this is pretty much simple test with also alt and select and start. So let's do save this. I'm just going to say cursor test actually, because it's not, I don't think it's technically the simple test. The simple test has some other stuff. Okay. Delete that. Copy it from here. We need to update the library also. Oh. So I should also update CircuitPython. I think that's because I didn't update the library. Let me do CircuitPython as well, though. I wonder if this thing's ever going to come around. I think this is maybe one of the things that got put on hold because the world went crazy. This is a neat, like, I guess Easter egg at this point. Kind of phantom device that you can't really get. There's a PyGamer with, I think with the airlift thing on it. So it would have Wi-Fi connection. I think was the idea. The Top Secret. It's made an appearance at some point on Top Secret. But then I think world went crazy and I don't know, you probably can't get the right chips or whatever. There's probably a reason why it never came to be. Anyway, rabbit hole. It would be super cool though to have a PyGamer with Wi-Fi. I guess there's a Featherwing. There's an airlift Featherwing, so you could attach that back there. I could be wrong too. Maybe that's not what it was. Maybe I'm like conflating multiple things. It'd be tough to find the Top Secret at this point. You probably could if you were willing to click through a bunch of them on YouTube, but didn't link directly to it. So, oh, we need to go. We need to get to bootloader mode. Double click. There we go. I am pretty washed out, aren't I? Light's kind of bright, I guess. I need to probably get a better camera. I just have like a, I don't know, it's like $40 or $50 web camera. It's nothing special. If I turn the lights off, then I look like I'm in a dungeon, though. I look like I'm like outside in the sun or something, though. It's actually rather dark in here. It's just because the lights are like right by me here, and the way this camera works. All right, so we want to grab the latest version of this from the PR. Control. I'm going to delete the one I have in lib. And the reason why I'm going to delete it is because I want to make sure that no files stay in here. In this particular instance, it's not a risk because all of these are the Pi versions and all of these are the Pi versions. And these are all going to replace the ones that are there. But what happens sometimes is if you mix and match, if you had some MPY and some Pi, and you go to paste a new one in, it could leave a file behind. Like if there's a file that's not in the new one that was in the old one, and it doesn't get deleted, then it can cause the library to break. One instance that we've had of this recently, a couple of folks have reported in the chat help with channel was, I think, display text. They had a init.py in addition to init.mpy and then bitmap label and label.mpy. And that init.py that they had was empty, and it was left over, I think, from just pasting in and choosing like yes, overwrite. But because that file was no longer there, it didn't overwrite that one, and so it kept an empty file. And then the other quirk is that CircuitPython will choose the Python version of the library over the MPY one. If you have both, it will pick the Python one. So people would try to import it. It would import the Python file. It would be empty instead of having what was in the MPY, and what it was supposed to have wouldn't work. It would either break or it wouldn't let them import, or it would cause trouble. Okay, so we got this running now. And okay, so when I press the A button, the A lights up. When I press the B button, the B lights up. And start and select as well. And then Okay, doesn't look like there's anything specific with like what it's on when you click it. This one is not necessarily like caring where the cursor is at, which is totally fine because this example is specifically about the debounced buttons. So like cursor control is, the cursor is kind of primary to what the library does, but this particular example happens to be showing more specifically just the buttons. I will take a look in the code though and just make sure that there's not supposed to be anything. Okay, so it's creating some display buttons, which is one of the display.io widgets that comes from a library called display button. Those are like touchscreen buttons that you can click on with a touchscreen, or this cursor library. Initializes the cursor, initializes the debounced cursor. So does that, let me look at the changes also. Is this a whole new manager? Does this work? Okay, no, so this definitely did exist before. Okay. It's a subclass of Cursor Manager that just, it builds on top of Cursor Manager and adds the debouncer objects into the mix. Okay. And they updated this to specify the A button. So back when the A button was the only button, the comments just didn't specify. They just said, you know, button was pressed, and it was just understood that that was the button. But now we can obviously press multiple buttons, and it reacts differently to all of them. So we have start released, select released, held. Okay, and so what is this code using specifically? It's using okay. One thing I noticed is that all of these buttons are drawn on top of the cursor. I bet you if we put this after, that the cursor will be drawn on top. I don't think it matters. I don't think it's necessarily worth changing, but I suspect it's the case, and I'm interested enough to try it as a bit of a experiment to see if I actually understand right. Yeah, because probably, so the way the display.io works is there's like a vertical hierarchy. Everything that goes in is on a layer, kind of like how layers in Photoshop work, or GIMP, or PowerPoint, or lots of programs these days honestly have layers. If things don't overlap, then it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if A is above or below B because they don't overlap. So we don't really see one on top of the other. It doesn't matter which vertical layer they're in. The cursor, though, the cursor can overlap because we can move the cursor to where it's on the same place as select. And so previously it was drawing the button on top of the cursor. Now it's drawing the cursor on top of the button. And that's because the last thing that you add to the group is going to be the one on top. So it goes like in reverse order. The first thing you add is on the bottom. The next thing goes on top of it. The next thing goes on top of it. It just keeps adding more and more on top. And in our case, this is where our buttons are getting added. And then somewhere inside of here, because this is passing in the group and the display, somewhere inside of here, it will be adding a tile grid or a group to splash that represents the mouse icon. So by moving it below the buttons, we allowed it to be drawn on top of all of them. But that is somewhat secondary to the whole gist of the PR. So we basically have held. Okay. Okay. So when it gets clicked, it fills in the button to purple. When it gets released, it goes back to black. Alt-click does the same thing, just for a different button, the B button. It fills it to purple. Release puts it back to black. Start-clicked fills it to purple. Release puts it back to black. Select clicked. Okay. Yeah. There's a small time sleep, so I'm not necessarily going to propose this change in the library, but I'm curious again to see if I understand how it works. So I also want to try cursor held. So this is going to be A button held. Print A held. I'm basically just going to add one of these for each. This is how I think it works, and I always like to try things how I think they work if I'm not 100% sure, because then I find out, and I am 100% sure for next time, or closer to 100. I don't know, things change. Sometimes it's not gonna stay the same, but or sometimes I'll like misinterpret what I did or something. It turns out I could be wrong, but alt held. Start held. Select held. Those are just going to print. We won't see anything on the screen, so I'll just get this thing up here. We won't see anything on the screen of the PyGamer, only in the terminal. Yeah. I did a relatively short one. You can see it's kind of fast. So we got a pressed, we got A held a bunch of times because it's still looping in there, and then eventually we got a pressed false, which that's our release. There's B. First went down, it was held for all of these frames, and then it was released here. Start and select. Those all appear to be working. Okay. So that does work how I thought. That also helps us test the debounce logic and everything, make sure that all of that's actually set up and working right. So I will look back over the code again and then leave a review. So this is mostly just changing to explicitly list out the different buttons. Again, it used to only support one button. We added support for it, and I think maybe debounce one, like when I added alt clicked, I think I maybe didn't even add it to the debounce one. I'm not sure, but I think that's actually new that this person added. And then also start and select. What changed here? Oh, right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because we used to just have one debouncer, and now we have multiple debouncers. Which, yeah, I think that does mean I did not add it to the B button when I did the B button. Yeah, I think I only did the cursor manager, not the debounce cursor manager. So thank you to this person, Foam. I don't know if they'll ever see this, but Flom84. I should put a hug report in the thing for them this week. Thank you for adding more functionality to this. This is the beauty of like open source stuff, is like it starts as its own little thing that does one specific thing that whoever made it wants to use it for, and then people can just add more helpful functionality to it. And this is the new example. They put their own name in the copyright, which is cool. Sometimes people will just copy an existing one and leave Lady Ada or whatever name is there. It's better to put your own name. If you're writing a whole new code file that doesn't exist before, just go ahead and put your own name in the copyright. And do the license thing as well, which it'll make you do the license thing because the actions won't pass. But you get to pick if you want MIT or unlicensed, whatever other license you want, because it's in the setup correctly with reuse. I will say, like, if I were writing this, I would use a different name than Splash, but I know a bunch of things that do use it already. I think I'm probably swimming upstream a little bit on that one, and I don't really intend to go and change them all. So I'd say it's probably okay to okay it here. I'd probably go, like, I tend to use main group as the name of my variable instead of Splash for that, which is like the group that I'm going to add everything else to show on the screen. And I like main group because eventually you can have a secondary group if you have another page, and then you can add different stuff to it and then show them back and forth. Do whatever you need. Example seems good to me. It's now going through all the debouncers. It's pretty good to me. Let's look at what the other feedback was. Oh, okay, items. Add buttons. It's not, it is no longer keys. Is it BTN? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Maybe this can be without values too? Or the... No. Oh, because I think... Yeah, if you iterate just over a dictionary without specifying, then you're iterating over the keys. So those are strings. Well, they're strings in this case. They don't have to be strings, actually. You can use other things as keys, but... Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking this looks good. And I took the release, right? 7.2.0? Is there a 7.3.0 yet? I'm usually on the beta, but I think we're We just did the stable release like within the last week or something, 5 days maybe, something like that. So I've been using the using that one since there was no beta. Yeah, 7.2.0. Let's double check. No, there are newer ones, like absolute newer, but there is no like alpha release that's listed on the org page yet. Although it looks like there is an alpha in there. There's 7.3.0 alpha. So there's a branch for it maybe, but no, it's not listed on these pages yet. Change requested was Tetrix, and it has been changed already. I don't know if there's a way to like, I guess maybe I think Tetrick, if he comes back and doesn't approve, then I think this would change to green, but it definitely did get changed, so I think throw my approve on there, and then I think we'll merge it. Yeah, because it definitely doesn't have items anymore. And it doesn't have keys either, which is the other thing they were discussing. Yeah, no items. Okay. Make a release. .260. So we'll go 270. I think we should go 270 because it's not a breaking change. There is no code that used to work that now doesn't, but there is new functionality. There is stuff that you used to not be able to do that you can now do, which is the debouncer stuff for those other buttons. So that is a middle number in semantic versioning in my mind. The far right would be a smaller change, like no new functionality, just a bug fix or like docstring update or something like that. The typing I've been doing as the lowest one. It's a good example of those. Debounce ing for alt, start, and select buttons. Let's double check the number. I'm in the habit of double checking the number before I click the final button. 260 is definitely the old one. 270 is the new one, which is definitely higher than 260. That's the most important part, is make sure it's higher. You push one that's lower, then something else gets messed up. TyPeR, or something in the actions doesn't work right. Forgot what it is, but I did it accidentally once. Okay, let's circle back and see if I don't know if Tetrick is like on and working on stuff right now. Check in again on this one we looked at though. Nice. Okay. Okay. Mentioned that it'll do it. No new commits yet, so we'll check on that one again later. Okay, so those are the main PRs. Those are the PRs I wanted to follow up on. So the next thing I had in mind to work on is a fun little project that's like SaRcaStic text, like SaRcaStic SpongeBob, this thing. I mean, I'm sure folks have seen this meme. It's like this SpongeBob character, and like usually it's used with this text that goes uppercase, lowercase, uppercase, lowercase, and it's like it was used in a bunch of memes, and it's kind of become a you know, its own style of conveying emotion through text. It's like conveying sarcasticness through text. And I thought it would be relatively easy and kind of fun to make a CircuitPython project that will help you do this without having to press shift. So what it will do is the microcontroller, which I'm going to use a clue, I think, because I happen to have one right here, and it has 2 buttons, which will be helpful for some inputs to have a configuration number that goes up and down, which I'll get to later what the number is going to be, but having those 2 buttons is nice for that reason. We'll plug this in. The PC will see this as a keyboard, and what we'll have this do is just press the shift key and hold it for, half a second, and then release it, and wait half a second, and then press it, and wait half a second, and release it, and press it. So it'll just constantly be pressing and releasing the shift key, and then you can just type as normal, and it will be, shifting and unshifting your text as you type. So you'll end up with a mix of uppercase and lowercase. And then I think the buttons can be raising and lowering the speed. So like I said half a second a minute ago, but we could actually have that be a variable. So maybe it's defaulted to half a second, but you can make it faster by pressing the A button to lower the time. So maybe it goes from 0.5 seconds down to 0.4, and then down to 0.3, and then down to 0.2 as you keep pressing the button there. And if you want it to go slower, then you could press the B button and it will raise it. So, maybe go up from 0.5 to 0.6 and then 0.7 and so on. So let's build out the app that does all of that stuff, which sounds like kind of a lot when I say it out loud, but honestly, CircuitPython has easy libraries for all of this. I don't think it's going to be that difficult, and I don't think it's going to end up being that much code. I tweak the sharpness there a little bit, or focus, I mean. So I'm going to plug this in. You know what else, though, I'm going to do before I start this is I'm going to fill up my water, and I'm also going to close the window. My legs are getting a little cold. We got the windows open today because it was super nice out, and the cats like to sit in the windows. But now it's dark and cold. So I'm going to go close the window, fill up my water, and I'll be back in a minute. I leave you with Party Parrot. Oh, but it doesn't party. So I leave you with Parrot. All right. Oh, I didn't put any ice in it. Oh, well. Okay. So this is like ODB HID test. This was a test for something else I looked at on Tuesday, which is updating relatively large portions of the screen with on-disk bitmaps while you're also sending HID events as a keyboard. causes the HIDs to like lag sort of, so it ends up making it spam the key as if you like pressed it and held it for longer than just like press release real fast. If that sounds interesting to you, you can check the stream from Tuesday, I think is when I worked on that. I get back to it eventually. It's not what I'm doing right now, so that's why I moved it over here, CodePy. So let's just start writing code. We need imports, so we need HID import, which we have in this file. Keypad we don't need. I guess we could use keypad for the buttons. Okay, yeah, we might as well use keypad for the buttons. Yeah, I guess we need these two. I'll put a label on the screen with the number, and we'll build that up-down configuration I was talking about. Whoop. Main group. Speed. Label. I like bitmap label. This font, we need the terminal IO. I'll put 0.5 to start with. We can make this pretty big because we don't have really anything else to put on the screen. We want this to be centered. Displayed width over 2. Displayed height over 2. That's probably good. I don't know if we need anything else, so let's add that to the group. And while true, pass. Let's see if that works. That should just draw our number. Nope, did not. What did we got going here? Oh, I never called display.show main group. Oh, I think this is not positional text. There we go. We can even go bigger still. And I guess if we wanted to, we could do like speed newline. I don't really like how it's not centered. It's nitpicky and it doesn't matter that much, but I don't really like it that way. So maybe we'll make a second one. Speed value. Oh. Value? Speed name. Speed name and speed value. That's what we just did the other day on the Games Web project. Which reminds me, I need to update the guide with that now that I think the code is out there. Although I guess we probably want to wait until, I probably want to wait to update the guide until there's a release that has that new certificate in it. Yeah, because we'll have to point folks to get the latest version in the guide. So we want to make sure that's actually published on the downloads page. Speed name. So this one I'm going to do speed. Speed. It's going to be smaller by a little bit. Anchor point the same, except for on height, I'm going to do divide by 4. So we're going to be a quarter of the way down to the screen instead of half, but still centered horizontally. What is this? Continuation? Okay, we'll fix it. I'm not the one who put it that way. Maybe I did, I don't know. Hey, whoa, ain't group. Nope. A little happy on the telesense enter sometimes. Okay, that looks pretty good. Maybe one bigger. And slightly further up. Nitpicking just a hair, but okay. That is up to standards for me. Alright, let's do keypad the same way that we did this one. Doesn't really matter the order we do a lot of this stuff in. The order that we append to the group does matter, like we saw earlier, but when we initialize these doesn't matter too much. Just kind of tuck it in down below what we have so far. Okay, and then I guess this is going to be these numbers 0 and 1, or 1 and 2. Let's just print it so we can see. Oh. Just click something into Twitch. Hopefully that didn't do anything crazy. I'm going. Okay, doesn't seem like it messed anything up. Okay, so B is 1, A is 0. Okay. I'm going to make a speed setting. Put this here. It's not actually going to change anything, but. And so if you press A, I want to go down by 0.1. And also I want to update the display, so speed value equals speed setting. No, speed value dot text equals speed setting. Key number 1, and it's going to plus and do the same thing. Something attribute split float 90. Maybe we can't actually do that. This wants to be a string. Um, $35. Oh. Okay. That's actually one where it definitely does matter the order. I said earlier, it doesn't matter too much where the order of something like this is, but we definitely do need display to be before we go to the main loop. So that order does matter, definitely. Okay, so we should be able to go B plus 1. Oh, and we'll have to convert these to strings, I guess, also. Maybe we should have that happen internally, side label. Okay. Oh. So it's doing one on press and one on release. There we go. Now it only does press and not release. What we want, okay. Although a lot of things happen on release, actually, like mouse clicks. Oh no, that did it on press. Yeah, actually, a lot of those are on press, not on release. Okay, so this goes up and down. Oh, down doesn't work so good though, does it? Yeah, there's a float problem. I'll tell you what, let's do speed setting 5. And then plus, no, minus equal 1. I get, honestly, we could just not do the decimal, right? Like the decimal, we'll just divide it when we go to do the weight. Okay. Should stop it from going negative. There we go. And we don't necessarily care about the upper bound. Okay. Put this at the top because eventually it could be like a configuration section of variables. We need another variable for storing the last time that we acted, the last time that we either pressed or released the shift key. We also are going to need time. Last action time. Last Action Hero. Anybody seen Last Action Hero? It's Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think. Some kid. Actually, I don't remember for sure now. Last Action. So just start with. Doesn't really matter what we start with. -1's a good value though, because it's always going to be counting up, and -1 is not actually a possible time. So I like to set it to something like that that's not actually possible for the real thing it's used for. That way we know that it's on like null, like it's initialized but not actually done anything with it yet. So now we're going to go now equals time dot monotonic if now greater than last action time plus speed setting divided by 10. This is what's going to take us to fractions of a second. So if we're on speed 5, that means maybe we should call this delay and not speed. Because generally speaking, a higher speed would mean faster, but in our case, it's actually opposite. Higher speed would be slower. Maybe we should call this delay. This is one of the nice things about PyCharm. If you end up wanting to rename a variable, it has this nice refactor that will not only change it, but change all the references to it. And in this case, it's only one file, but this works even in like large projects with dozens and dozens of files. It'll find all the usages and update it. It's super convenient. Okay. So here we're gonna go if now is greater than the last action time plus the amount of time we want to wait for, then we know it's time to act. And I think what we'll do is do pressed equals false. So then we get something like if pressed else. I'm going to fill something else in here, but I like to do pass first to get my editor to be back to happy. That way, like, I can actually pay attention to red underlines and stuff. So I don't know off the top of my head the code for HID. There's some of it in this ODB HID, but I think we want something different because we want press and release separately. I think that other example is just like send, which does both at once. Release buttons. Oh, this is gamepad stuff. Send. Stick. Release buttons. That's on the gamepad again. Maybe, I guess we don't combine this. This is consumer control though. And these are also send, which is going to send both the press and the release event. Okay, so it looks like we don't have an example of separated ones. We'll go to the docs. I'm like an examples first kind of a person. I'm always looking in the examples before the docs. Although in this case, I should have gone to the docs because here's exactly what we want right here. Don't really need that. So if it is pressed, then we're going to release it. Else, if it's not pressed, then we are going to press it. And we can just do release all. We're not going to press any other keys, so it doesn't really matter, but shift. Okay, and then we don't have KVD yet, which I think we do. It's called keyboard. Okay. What I'm actually going to do though before I run this is just put prints here. So releasing. Pressing. And then also we need to update the last action time. Last action time is now. Because we took an action, so we want to update it. And we want to update it whether it was the press or the release. So either of those happen, and then we update it. So this should basically just print pressed, released. Okay, So the other thing is we also need to go here. Pressed equals not pressed. So we'll flop it to the other state. We could do inside of here, like pressed equals false, and then inside of here, pressed equals true, or maybe I got those backwards. But this way it'll always, we don't have to write two statements, and it will always flip to the right one. It should. We got pressing, releasing, pressing, releasing, pressing, releasing, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So that looks good to me. We want to do something else. I'm trying to think if I want to try to make a thing that will disable it. Because if you've never worked on a keyboard-like device, and you have never had this wonderful experience of running your code and then having your computer go crazy because your project started pressing keys. And so I'm thinking, do we want to have like a kill switch that we can somehow tell it to stop doing these things? Okay, this is a pretty simple scheme. What if we just say user is actually allowed to go down to -1, to 0. Can we go to 0 today? Not today, I mean, I just wrote this thing today, but right now, with this version of the code, can we go to 0? Yeah, and we can't go below. So what if we just say when the delay is 0, then that counts as paused? If you have a delay of 0, then it just paused. It won't try to spam as fast as it can. It'll just pause. So the quickest it can go, the way the code's written right now, is 1/10 of a second. Like if I do enact this, I guess. I think I like that actually. So we'll just say in here, if delay setting is greater than 0, then do this stuff. And if it's not, then don't. And therefore, whenever we set it to 0, it'll stop doing the pressing and releasing. So if the computer starts going crazy, we can always just put this down to 0. And then this will stop happening, which means also our shift will stop happening. It means we're free to go do other regular keyboard stuff, and it's not going to mess us up. Okay. I like that. What are you doing, buddy? 1 second. Saying hi to the raccoon friends. Sounded suspiciously like a cat on the counter, but it wasn't. Okay. And yeah, so the first one it printed was pressing. That means that we will press and then release, which is good. That's what we want. I don't know what would happen if you sent a release without a press. Maybe nothing, but... okay, so I think I'm going to open this. I'm going to save it. Okay. That's a little too slow, I think. Let's try it down here. I notice it's kind of delaying the rest of my keyboard typing, actually, also. Like I typed all of that, and it kind of waited until I stopped typing. But I guess that's also a virtue of the program? Oh, wait. Shift click must do something different, I guess, which is why that was being weird. Okay. This is 0. Although I guess if we were on 0, we could get stuck with shift pressed. We probably should add logic where, like, else the display setting was 0, then we say if pressed, then just release once and change once. That way it'll unpress if it was pressed before. Whoa. So yeah, here's this is what I was talking about with the computer going crazy. It's doing all this stuff because of shift. Interesting. It's coming out a little bit better, but I don't understand why the long delay when I'm typing. A different approach might be caps lock instead of shift. So if I hold the shift button and then I press other buttons, they all appear as I press them. But for some reason the shift, while the shift is happening from here, it like waits for me to get, like, waits until I stop typing, basically. This is okay. 3 is the lowest that we can set it on in PyCharm, or else it counts as a double shift, which opens up some kind of search thing. I don't know. It's like until I stop typing for like almost a full second or two, and then it finally catches up. All right, well, that's an interesting idea. It does kind of work a little bit. I'm curious to try the faster one. Oh, no, it's not letting me type. Oh. It's making me wait longer now before it catches up. Now it's like several seconds. Hmm. It was supposed to be delay 2, but I guess that's the other side effect, I guess, of using shift is that it's gonna do characters instead of numbers. Okay, well, I think I probably need to reapproach it a different way. I think my next plan would be don't bother tracking pressed or released. Instead, just send caps lock once. But I don't know, is it? It's caps lock. I think we got it. And yeah, we just don't need else really, and maybe it'll have caps lock on. Maybe it'll be off, but either way, you can just press it once on your keyboard to turn it off if it was on. That's not true, because I just clicked through to it. E. It's MPY, so I can't see it. Perhaps underscore. Where did that control click take me? I wonder. That was weird. Okay, that's a little bit delayed, but not anywhere near as bad as the shift was. So with it down on 1, the delay actually starts to come back. I guess it depends how much I type. If I keep typing, then we end up having to wait longer. I wonder if we're just spamming... Or if we're just spamming it too fast. I don't know. Anyway, this does work a little bit better, I think. The delay is not quite as bad, especially on 1. Like, that delay on shift with 1 was like several seconds, like 10 or 20 seconds we just waited for it, which is... Here, I don't feel like it's quite that long. Maybe 5 or 10 seconds, which is still a long time, especially when you're just waiting for something to happen. 1 Mississippi. That was about 9 Mississippis, which are not the most scientific measuring unit, but... And it looks like it gave us a fairly good mix of uppercase, lowercase. We got a couple in a row, like 4 in a row there, 3 in a row here, 3 in a row here. I think technically it's like back and forth, but I also think technically there's room for leeway because of the type of concept that this is. Like doubles and triples here and there are not the end of the world. They still produce the effect. Okay, I think I'm gonna head out for tonight. Those are the main things I wanted to play with, was mostly following up those PRs, and then I just had this funny idea that I wanted to get kind of a rough draft put down of to see how it worked and what it does, and I've now done that. So I think I'll head out for now. I will, the next time I'll be streaming on this channel is Saturday morning at 10 a.m. But I will be joining Scott on Deep Dive tomorrow evening at 10 a.m. Central Time on Saturday. That's when I'm going to be streaming. Tomorrow I'm going to be joining Scott at like 3 p.m. Pacific, which is about 1 hour into Deep Dive. So I'll like video chat in and talk with Scott for a little while. So you can catch me there, but that is on the Adafruit channel on Twitch and YouTube and stuff, not this channel that you're watching now. So you'll have to head over there to see it tomorrow, and then back to here on Saturday morning. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time.